Hello, Waterford Wesleyan Church Online. I'm Pastor Matt. I'm the assistant pastor here at Waterford Wesleyan Church. And for today's video, we have one quick announcement, and that is this. This upcoming month, January 12th, that's a Wednesday at 6:30, we are beginning our next growth group. Now, this is a growth group for everybody, men, women, and teenagers. If you want to know how to be emotionally healthy in your spirituality, this is for you, because what we're going to be discussing is just that, emotionally healthy spirituality. We're going to be going through the book by Pete Scazzero for the next couple of weeks after January 12th, starting at 6:30 here at the church, and we're going to be talking about emotionally healthy spirituality. Where in our lives does our spirituality and our emotional health kind of butt heads, and how is our emotional health keeping us from becoming spiritually mature? So, if you want to sign up for that, I encourage you to go to waterfordwc.com, go to the top bar, you'll find growth groups, and you can sign up there. But do it quick. We really want you to be able to join us, so do it quick. That again is emotionally healthy spirituality here at the church, starting January 12th at 6:30. Now, with that out of the way, here is Pastor Paul.
So my wife and I rush out a couple nights ago to finish up our Christmas gift shopping and getting all of that done. And we swing by Panera Bread to grab some gift cards, and that transaction happens there at the drive-through window. And then as we're getting ready to leave, the really nice clerk from behind the window yells out, "Hey, stay safe out there." And I thought, okay, that was a weird thing to say, and we just drove off. And we still had other places to go, and so we ran over to Target to pick up some other things. And we grab all of our stuff and we do the self-checkout. And as we're finishing up the self-checkout, this young guy about 17 years old that works there comes over with his disinfectant in hand, and his name tag says Marcus, and he starts cleaning up our station. And as we're walking away, he's like, "Hey, stay safe out there." And I went, what in the world is going on? It's like I stepped into an episode of Hill Street Blues. Well, I realize I just probably dated myself by using that reference, but if you know what Hill Street Blues is, you know what I'm talking about. If you don't, it's like a cop show, and it's that classic scene where all the cops at shift change come together, and the captain's there kind of giving out new jobs and kind of transitioning the police officers from one shift to another. And at the end of that time in the squad room, and he sends the police officers out and he says, "Hey, stay safe out there." And that's what I felt like. I stepped into an episode of Hill Street Blues. And I thought to myself, Marcus, what could be safer than buying a bunch of junk to stick in my kids' stockings? I'm not busting up drug deals. I'm not chasing bad guys down. I'm not addressing a domestic dispute. I'm just buying stuff for stockings. I think it's inherently safe, right? I mean, that just seems to be that way. I know you're probably thinking, hey, they're talking about COVID. I know that. I get that. But I realized that every time I was told, stay safe out there, something rose up inside of me. It bothered me. And this might be a me issue, so that's okay. It could be. It's just bugging me, and I'm wondering, why does that bother me so? Why does it edge me out when someone says, stay safe out there? I mean, it's a weird thing to get edged about. And then it hit me. I realized that bothers me so is because as a society, we're starting to rise to the level of worshiping safety, where safety is the most important thing in our lives, of staying safe. And that's a problem, because in this world is inherently unsafe. There are things that you just can't stop. And if your goal in life is to be safe, you will forever chase an apparition. It can't be done. And this world is inherently unsafe. And if you don't believe me, just ask the people of Mayfield, Kentucky. All they did was went to bed that night, and the tornadoes came. I have observed in just my lifetime of how we have placed more and more and more emphasis on safety, and it will lead us astray. I mean, I could tell you stories how when I was a kid, we didn't wear helmets, or when I was a kid, my parents didn't know where I was, or how there's been an evolution of helicopter moms, and it's all about staying safe. But you really don't want to hear that. The problem with safety isn't that just we're going to constantly chase it. The problem is if it rises to that level of most important in our life where we worship it, we've got serious problems if we're going to attempt to follow Jesus. because I am convinced that following Jesus isn't safe. It reminds me of what C.S. Lewis said in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and talking specifically about Aslan, who is the image of Christ. And he speaks about Aslan and says that he's not safe, but he's good. And boy, that makes a lot of sense to me. And you see, my concern is that when safety usurps God's goodness in your life, you will most certainly miss out on what he has for you. You see, because Jesus isn't safe, nor is following him. Let me give you a couple examples of what I mean by that. A safe Jesus would never confront the people that could have him arrested, tortured, and then ultimately conspired to have his life taken. A safe Jesus wouldn't poke that bear. A safe Jesus would never, and I mean never, touch a leper. Ugh, Jesus, that wasn't safe. A safe Jesus wouldn't do those things. A safe Jesus wouldn't confront a demon-possessed man. A safe Jesus wouldn't confront and being confronted by Satan and be tempted by him. A safe Jesus isn't going to do that. Following Jesus isn't safe. And I'm just scratching the surface with how unsafe following Jesus really is. And I'll challenge you to do this. Read through the Gospels and see time and time again, Jesus' primary goal does not have safety in front of him. He's concerned about something much greater, and he has a problem with anything that gets in the way of that greater. And safety may be it. Let me give you an example of what I mean. In Matthew chapter 16, beginning at verse 21, Jesus says this. From that time on, Jesus began to explain to his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things at the hands of the elders and the chief priests and the teachers of the law, and that he must be killed and on the third day be raised to life. Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. Never, Lord, he said, this shall never happen to you. Jesus turned and said to Peter, Get behind me, Satan. You are a stumbling block to me, and you do not have in mind the concerns of God, but merely human concerns. Then Jesus said to his disciples, Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me will find it. What good is it for someone to gain the whole world yet forfeit their soul? Or what can anyone give in exchange for their soul? For the Son of Man is going to come in his Father's glory with his angels, and then he will reward each person according to what they have done. Truly, I tell you, some are standing here will not taste death before they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. Jesus lays out for his disciples some of the unsafe things that are coming his way. He's going to Jerusalem. That's already got a little tension there for him. He's going to suffer and he is going to be killed. None of that sounds very safe. And Peter confronts that and says to him, You're not going to do that, Jesus. That's unsafe. That's kind of like my translation of it. Jesus' response to Peter is visceral. Let's look again at verse 23. He says, Get behind me, Satan. You are a stumbling block to me, and you do not have in mind the concerns of God, but merely human concerns. My initial response to that is, but Pete's just trying to help. I mean, he's just trying to go, Jesus, think about that. This is a dangerous thing you're about ready to do. And you might even be thinking, you know what, Jesus, chill a little bit. I mean, that seems to be a pretty heavy reaction. Get behind me, Satan. But that's precisely my point. When something fine or good usurps God's place in your life, it's a problem. And it reveals, if that feels weird to you, what Jesus' response is, it reveals that safety is the primary goal. It wasn't for Jesus. Jesus says, Pete, you've just got things of man in mind, not the things of God. And Jesus has a pretty serious problem with that. You see, safety from what you fear is not the primary goal of the follower of Jesus. Safety from what you fear and what I fear cannot be the primary goal of the follower of Jesus. But fear is a reality in our life. I once heard someone say it this way, you're always afraid unless you learn not to be. Now, just so you don't think I'm telling you to be reckless and careless and disregard self-preservation, And you go, well, look, man, we're in a pandemic, and you're telling me to don't worry about safety. It's not about safety. COVID just reveals our love and our worship, our borderline worship of safety. I'm not talking about COVID. I'm talking about you and me following Jesus. And he leads us to do things that may make us fearful or will feel unsafe. Will you still follow him? Look, and the fear is real. I mean, it's real for me. It's real for you. Even Jesus faced things that he was like, hey, that's a little heavy. After the Last Supper, Jesus went to Gethsemane, and he finds himself feeling the weight of what's about to happen to him. And he says to Peter, James, and John in Matthew 26, verse 38, he says, my soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. Stay here and keep watch with me. Why is his soul overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death? Because he knows what he's about to face, and it's heavy, and it isn't safe. And he prayed several times that night for that unsafe reality to be taken from him. Matthew chapter 26, verse 42 says this, he went away a second time and prayed, my Father, if it is not possible for this cup to be taken away unless I drink it, may your will be done. And then it happens. He does what may be the most unsafe thing in his life. Standing there in the garden, maybe even still wiping the blood that he sweat off his brow, he looks up and sees Judas coming and says this in Matthew 26, 45 and 46. Then he returned to his disciples and said to them, are you still sleeping and resting? Look, the hour has come. The Son of Man is delivered into the hands of sinners. And here it is. Rise, let's go. Here comes my betrayer. Look, Jesus is in full unsafe mode here. He sees Judas coming, the one who will betray him with a kiss, and he goes right to him. That's not safe. And he was betrayed, arrested, mocked, beaten, abandoned, murdered. Clearly, that was not safe. Jesus was not driven by safety. He was driven by God's will for his life. So today, for you and for me, it's a heart check, it's a gut check. What do you worship? Is your life about safety? What good is it for the man to gain the whole world but yet forfeit his soul? Taking up my cross and following Jesus doesn't sound very safe either. And as a society, we're constantly being stoked by fear and venerating safety. But following Jesus is about stepping past fear. Now hear me clearly. I'm not telling you to go be reckless and do foolish things or stupid things. What I'm challenging you to do and me to do is examine your heart and examine your mind. It has the worship of safety kept you from taking that step of faith God's been asking you to take? Whether it's with your family, whether it's forgiveness, whether it's trusting him with your finances, trusting him with something bigger, trusting him with your health, whatever it may be, what is he asking you to do? And has the worship of safety gotten in the way of following the unsafe but good Christ?